Well, folks, if your eardrums aren't perforated from our intro, allow me to welcome you all to the Super Jam Session Football Bonanza, the predictions by a couple of pontificators. And we're going to keep on pontificating down the field, boys, as we give ourselves a pat on the back for thinking like we know what we're talking about. It is the NFL 2023 Predicciones from two of the three members of the Super Jam Session, the Super and the Jam part. And Session will be editing there, the Super and the Session. And we left Jam out to go edit and make some preserves. But speaking of preserving what little time we have to talk, Skyler, how are you doing today, my friend? This is a different subject that we've been wanting to talk about for a very long time.
Well, we're on the dawn of what is about to be the 2023-2024 NFL football season.
Woo!
And I'm just having a dandy old time getting ready for what is going to be a good time when my favorite football team makes me happy and disappoints me at the same time.
That's right. Well, hey, that's what the NFL is all about. Excitement and disappointment. And it doesn't matter which team you're talking about. But before we begin, let's talk briefly about our passion for our teams. Now, Skyler, you are from the Bay Area. Am I correct in that statement?
Yes, you are.
All right. So why don't you break down your love of the team from that area, the San Francisco 49ers? When did you become a fan? And what is your feeling about the team now heading into 2023/2024?
Well, you have to understand that going into my football career watching stuff, I had two teams to choose from, the San Francisco 49ers or the Oakland Raiders.
True.
And right now, I think I've made the right choice, considering one team is still in the Bay Area.
Yeah, there ain't no way, and it doesn't matter how bad San Francisco's team gets, there's no way the Niners are leaving the Bay. No shot at that ever happening.
No shot. So I became a fan during the 2002 NFL season when the 49ers were first in the NFC West, and they were the team that was run by Jeff Garcia and Steve Marucci as head coach.
I remember Jeff Garcia. He flirted around and played for Tampa for a little bit.
Yep, he's our boy. He's our bald boy that we share.
That's right. That's right.
And they had a great season. They lost the Bucks in the divisional playoffs.
Yeah, that was a great season. That was a great season for us.
I don't know what happened during the 2002 football season for the Bucks.
Yeah,
I don't know what was special.
Sure
what wasn't special.
Continue.
I mean, we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, the 49ers were my team. I'm like, I'm going to have this be my football team. And then they went 7-9, and then they went 2-14, and then they hired Mike Nolan as head coach.
Yeah, there were some real rough waters there in the late 2000s into the early 2010s prior to getting a certain guy. But there were some rough years there that for both our teams, but even the Niners, there were some dark times in the Bay.
I mean, we had Alex Smith as a rookie.
Yeah, well, but considering what he developed into, it's a shame about how Alex Smith's whole tenure came and went with him, and then the injury with him in Washington, name and address withheld from that because we still don't know what they're going to be named eventually. The Commanders currently, but there'll
be something else soon enough.
There'll be something else soon enough. But in any case, Alex Smith, he was an underrated guy, but at least, there was at least some ups as the 2010s started to turn for the Niners.
Yep, the 2011 season was the first one where they went 13-3, the first year under Jim Harbaugh, and then they went ahead and lose the NFC Championship game to the fucking Eli Manning-led New York Football Giants.
Yeah, I wonder what they did that season.
Yeah, I wonder what they did too. But then 2012, we go to the Super Bowl and lose to Harbaugh's brother against the Ravens.
I gotta tell you, man, that was one of the craziest Super Bowls to watch, because the Ravens were not actually playing that well up until the lights went out and came back on, and it turned on the Ravens.
No, hold on. That game that game the Ravens were kicking our asses.
Well, no, it was the San Fran was coming from behind. That was the thing. San Fran woke up after that. That's right. And because they started scoring after the Ravens were kicking the holy out of them, the lights go out, they come back on, and then it gets close.
And we lose on the last second play.
Yeah, and that was devastating. That was hard. That's a hard loss in the Horror Bowl, as they called it. But what was even worse than that was Jim Harbaugh sucking basically from that year on.
Well, no, hold on. The next year we lose to the fucking Legion of Boom Seattle Seahawks in the NFC Championship game.
I wonder what they did that season. Actually, I remember what they did that season.
Yeah, I wonder what happened.
I see a trend here, Sky.
We're the team that loses to the team that eventually wins the Super Bowl.
Yeah, except for last year, but still.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, is that we lose to the Seahawks. We go 5 years with basically Harbaugh, after Harbaugh leaves with Tom Sula, when Chip Kelly was the head coach. And then 2019, we get to the Super Bowl. We lose to the Chiefs.
And that was just the start of the Chiefs really becoming the team to beat in the NFL.
Yep. And then in 2021, we lose to the Rams. I wonder what they did.
I remember. But that was a wild time because you know who the team the Rams beat to face you was? That would be mine. But we'll get to that in a second.
And then we lose to the Eagles. I wonder what they did.
Well, they lost to the Chiefs, but...
The point still stands.
Yes. Oh, it totally still stands. But it's like, you've been right there quite a few times. So it's only a matter of time before you claim yours. And we'll see whether we feel like it's going to be this year or not, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Wait, hold on. Give me 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We lost to 16 during that time that went on to win the Super Bowl after they beat us.
Yeah, sometimes that's the way it is in the NFL.
And also giving the Packers a bunch of losses.
Yeah, and honestly, there are some satisfying times that you teabag the Cowboys. That's always entertaining.
Our job is to basically make sure that the Cowboys and Packers don't make it back to the Super Bowl.
Yes, which is good. I mean, those are good things, and those are good characteristics to have.
But why don't we talk about your team?
Well, my team is the losingest franchise in NFL history. That is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I became a Bucs fan in 2007, ironically enough, the year that Jeff Garcia was the quarterback for Tampa Bay. And this was not a lifelong thing for me. I was about 14 when I chose and stuck with Tampa Bay, and I had flirted around with a couple other teams. My dad was a Giants fan, and I never really loved the Giants. So, I flirted with the Raiders for a few years. I had about 3 years that I was a Raiders fan during the Norv Turner era.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You want to talk about learning the culture of losing. 3 years under Norv Turner and 1 under Art Shell was enough for me to go, yeah, I'm done with the Raiders. So I moved on to 1 year with the Rams, the year after they go 14-2, and I picked the year the Rams go 2-14 to try them. And I said, well, this ain't it. So I moved over to the most losing franchise in history, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this is why I fell in love with this team. First of all, they were named after a very real set of piracy history in Tampa Bay. That's something, the whole Treasure Island deal. So they actually used their history to come up with the team name. Their logo is ridiculous, but I love it. At least the original one, the one that had, the flowing locks and the creamsicle and all that jazz.
Basically the one that made you look like a Disney character.
Yeah, I love that logo. It's ridiculous, but I love the logo. But in any case, just the history of this team. where they lose 26 consecutive games to start their tenure in the league because their team shows up and isn't allowed to draft in year one, so they had to pick basically just from the scraps and the schlubs, and they got their ass handed to them week in and week out and week in and week out. Whole first season, not a single win. And then the Selman brothers show up, and they get beaten and beaten and beaten and beaten until finally the father of Eli and Peyton says, yeah, it'd be more embarrassing than going winless or whatever. He said something in a paper about never losing to Tampa Bay would be like the ultimate humiliation or something like that. I forget what the words were. They were fighting words, and it hit Tampa Bay wrong, and they went out in 1977 and beat the Saints, the Archie Manning-led Saints, and they could not land the airplane in Tampa Bay because the entire city poured into the airport to celebrate them coming home. For one win. This is the jobber team, but one win got the entire town to crowd the airport. They are the definition of fair weather fans, but when they show up hard, bro. And just like
I didn't know you had fans before 2002 and 2020.
Well, because they don't show up very often. Because it's hot as hell in Tampa Bay, and there's a lot of air-conditioned bars that most of them are able to broadcast the game. So when you see half the seats in Tampa empty, remember the climate. And then there was a time, there was actually a time things were so bad in Tampa, they were blacking out Tampa Bay games in Tampa Bay. And trying to force them to get into Ray J. And that was also during that was the Josh Freeman era of Tampa Bay. That's
yeesh.
And there's a lot of yeesh in Tampa Bay's history. And but it's amazing the kind of talent that has passed through here on the way to greatness. And we, the Warren Sapps, and even San Francisco has got a lot of this too. I mean, they've got some of the most recognizable players of all time. But the talent that's passed through Tampa Bay, and the fact that this team, which was an expansion team, won a Super Bowl in the 2003 season when nobody ever expected that Tampa would ever do anything in the league ever. And all of a sudden, they've got themselves a Super Bowl ring, the first ever that they've ever had. And then to say that they would actually win a second one 17 or 13 years later is also, or 20, almost, 17 years later. I'm sorry, excuse me. But 17 years later, they would come back, and 13 years from the time I became a fan, who lost to the Eli-led Giants that beat the Patriots the first time. But this team has brought me some of the most devastating pain I've ever felt, but also some of the most exhilarating rushes I've ever felt. And the reason why I love this team can be summed up in this manner. It won't be all the time, but it won't be never. Because every so often the stars align for Tampa Bay and everybody shows up and the tickets sell out and Tom Brady shows up and we have ourselves a good ass time. It's not all the time. It certainly will not be this year, but it's not the worst fandom to be a part of.
Yeah, that would still be the Cleveland Browns.
That would go well, yes. The ones who pelted the referees after the refs botched a call once, and yeah, we haven't thrown any bottles into the ring yet, onto the field and attacked referees with rocks and beer cans. But let's see how the year goes. So should we sink our teeth into this guy? All right, Skyler, here's how we're gonna do this. Now, because I used to see those cards back in the day and played, the old Madden games. I don't play any of the new Madden games, but the old Madden games on the PS2. The way I want to go through this is I want us to do division by division. So we'll talk about the East first, then the North, then the South, then the West, because that's always how I see it on these. And I've never made sense to me why they framed it that way, but that's the way I remember it. So we're going to do it, I guess alphabetically. Now that it took me until today years old to find out that's why they did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, folks, you learn something new every day. So we're going to start with the East. And the way I want to do this is I'm going to bring up a team. We're going to talk about the records that we're going to give that specific team. And then at the end, when we've talked about all 4 teams, we're going to go through and kind of just rack up who we've got from that division, what the top and the bottom. We'll just kind of list them all up. You with me?
I'm with you.
All right, so let's start alphabetically. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills. And Skyler, why don't you take us through what your feelings are about the Bills and where they end up as a result of this season?
I'm not going to lie. I kind of feel bad for the Buffalo Bills because they should be the class of the AFC, but because of a certain person that lives in Kansas City, they're not going to be that.
Well,
Josh Allen feels like this generation's Philip Rivers.
Yeah, okay. Well, I wasn't going to say it, but you've definitely got a point. And here's the thing that's wild about me. This team has had minimal changes over the course of this offseason. Minimal, sizable changes where you go, oh, wow, they lost a key player. But for some reason, I guess the vibe and the culture of this team has changed where people are starting to wonder, have they missed their window? And that has caused people to really think that the Bills are going to step back, but I don't know why. They've still got quite a good roster on their hands.
The problem with the Buffalo Bills is that they are very much hung-string by the fact that they are kind of stuck being behind other teams. It's not that they have missed their window, it's that the window has opened up at the worst possible time.
Well, yeah, it's hard to argue that point because the AFC is arguably the strongest it's ever been. It is
right, and this is probably the tougher conference, obviously.
Yeah,
and it has the better quarterbacks.
Yeah, and it's not even just about the quarterbacks, but it's just the way that the general managers are handling some of these teams and the acquisitions they're getting. And that's not to take anything away from the Bills, but it was kind of a quiet offseason from the Bills. Which is not necessarily a bad thing, but maybe that's why this impression is what it is, because the Bills can't feel like the same team and act or feel like they're Super Bowl bound when they were supposed to be the favorites last year and kind of whimpered to a divisional exit.
Right, and it's tough to really gauge where Buffalo's going to be. I mean, they're still the class of the AFC East. They're easily going to go 13-4, maybe 14-3.
Wow.
I don't see many games that are going to be losses on their schedule, except for one against the Bengals and one against the Chiefs that I think are going to be the real test of the season.
Well, that very much depends on how the Bengals are. It depends on what the status. I mean, in Week 9 they should have Joe Burrow back, but it's when their schedule is. Here's the thing with Buffalo. When it comes to their schedule, I love watching the Bills, but every 4 or 5 games, they have a game against the team they should destroy that they lose. And you sit there and you go, how the hell did this team lose this game? And this is like the year that Jacksonville was under Urban Meyer. The game after, I think, it was Week 5 or 6, the game after Urban Meyer got fired, the Bills put over the Jaguars. And the Bills were running hot at that time, and it was like a 9-6 game. Nobody scored. And you're sitting there going, how in the hell did that happen? And I feel like that's kind of, if the Bills are going to take a step back, I don't feel like it's so far a step back that they lose this division. I still think it's their division to lose, but they're going to lose some games. They're going to lose some head scratchers. So my record...
The hardest part for Buffalo is that they have a really tough middle of the season playing the Eagles, the Bengals, the Chiefs, and the Jets all within 5 games of each other.
Yeah, and the Bills always end up splitting one with the Jets. Actually, nobody talks enough about, because the Pats dominated it for so long, but nobody talks about how competitive the games are in the AFC East. A lot of the time, trust me, I've seen a lot of them. coming from the New England metropolitan, kind of in the melting pot of all of that in Connecticut. I see a lot of those games, and it's tough football. It's real tough football. And to their credit, no matter what the records of all four of these are, I always say there's a good chance that the victories are split no matter what the records look like. And I could see them splitting with the Jets. I could see them splitting one with the Dolphins. All it takes is a couple bad calls one way or another, and that seems to affect Buffalo a lot. So my record for the Bills, I still think they win this division, but it's going to be close. I'm giving them 11-6.
Okay, but who do you have coming second and challenging them?
Well, I'm not going to say who my second person is yet, but let's go alphabetically. Let's talk about Miami. I'm not saying they are or are not, but here's Miami.
Miami is glass cannon. Like, that offense is going to go burr. It's going to go burr very quickly.
For about
I have
4
questions
weeks.
about that defense.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I believe in Tua Tagovailoa. I believe in the stoner Mike McDaniel. I think he's one of the funniest coaches I've ever seen in my life. That dude cracks me up. He literally just sits there and vapes on the sideline and comes up with plays for the guys. And it seems to work. But I don't trust Miami's medical team. I don't trust their athletic team. After what we saw last season, and allegedly those people were fired, but the way that they lied about the situation with Tua and the way that they really kept all of that under wraps, I don't like Stephen Ross. He's a gigantic heel owner, in my opinion. And I don't like the fact that all of those problems have seemingly not been addressed or really publicly acknowledged by the Dolphins organization as something they've rectified. And so long as that's the case, what's to stop any of these people from getting drastically injured? Whether it's Tua again or Tyreek or any of the other players. I mean, they've acquired a few this offseason. Miami grabbed some weapons, but it won't matter if the medical team and the athletic team have 40,000 injuries that plagued the entire season and force them right back into the same mid-card position that they've been in for the past 20 years.
Yeah, that is true, but what kind of record do you give the Dolphins?
So on that basis, I truly believe that the NFL moved to 18 games or 18 weeks and 17 games because Miami started really bitching about going 8-8 every single damn season. I really do. I think that that's where that started. Stephen Ross started bitching, like, at least let us try to have a winning season. From being in mid-card purgatory, I believe that Miami is still bound for mid-card purgatory because I don't trust the medical team. So I put them at 8-9 for this season. I think that they mid out, they fizzle out about halfway through because, like you said, at the beginning that offense is going to go burr, but then it's going to go burr as in freezing cold.
See, that's the hard part, is that I could easily see the Dolphins go 8-9, or I could see them going 10-7.
Well, and it's a couple of calls. So is that where you put them, 10-7?
I'm going to stay in this conservative range and say 9-8. I just don't trust. You're right. I don't trust that medical staff. I don't trust the coaches, and that defense is still suspect. They have a great offense, but if they get shut down, that defense is going to be let open wider than plastic paper.
Yeah, and it's all really contingent on Tua, who is incredibly talented, but he's got to stay healthy. He's got to play more than 6 consecutive games and hopefully not have his brain scrambled in the middle of the process, which the jury's still out on that. They lost 3 quarterbacks last year. They had Skyler Thompson playing for them at the end of the year because they had just quarterback. Bridgewater went down. Tua went down. The third one went down. Skyler Thompson was 4, I'm pretty sure. And so I don't know what's going to go on with them, but alphabetically next, this is maybe one of the most intriguing teams in the entire league this year, the New York Jets. Tell me what you think about the Aaron Rodgers-led New York Jets. Where do they end up?
You mean Brett Favre 2.0?
Well, almost literally. Without maybe all the welfare fraud. Hopefully.
I mean, he's going to play for the Jets, and then he's going to play for the Vikings and complete that Brett Favre run.
I don't know if he wants to shadow it that hard. It depends on how bad Woody Johnson is to him.
But that's the thing, is that do I trust at this point a 39-year-old Aaron Rodgers to carry the New York Jets to greatness? I don't know. He's got the tools. He has a great wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. The Jets defense is getting better. I mean, they did hire the guy that used to be the 49ers defensive coordinator. I just don't trust this team. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be that dude again that he used to be.
Well, there's one of two ways that it can go. It could either go the 43-year-old Tom Brady wins a Super Bowl with the team that he moved to, or it could be 38-year-old Matt Ryan laying a gigantic egg in Indianapolis. And there's really no middle ground, is there?
There isn't.
But here's coming. Now I'm in Connecticut, so I hear Jets talk all the time. The guys I'm interested in, Quentin Williams is an incredible defensive tackle. He is going to be a difference maker. They have really amped up some weapons in this defense in ways that they needed to. And I will give General Manager Joe Douglas all the credit in the world for really making some solid picks in these past couple of years, with Sauce Gardner only getting better. They've really fortified the rookie running back Breece Hall. He was lighting things up. He was the real reason the Jets ended up at 6-2 at one point, until he went down with an ACL injury and it destroyed their running game. That's why Dalvin Cook was brought in, and that's going to be an interesting add to the mix. The fact that they have added so many weapons just for Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers seems to be absorbing the culture of New York and kind of making it his own. But that's what worries me, because there's a phrase that I and a number of friends of mine who are Patriots fans have, and even Jets fans acknowledge this to be true, because this all looks well and good, but at the end of the day, it's the Jets. And they will find a way, no matter what good they have, to have some lightning strike to snakebite this season. And it seems to happen every time something goes well in their favor. It seems to happen every time they get an ounce of hope. It just gets yanked out from underneath them. And I hope that Aaron Rodgers is helping change that kind of culture within the New York Jets organization. The culture of stepping on our own feet. And if they can do that, they can make a run. But I feel a lot of similarities with the way that the Jets have really laid this groundwork to the way that Tampa Bay had laid the groundwork when Tom Brady became involved with the Buccaneers. Which means that it's not quite going to but do I think he's going to win the Super Bowl with the Jets in year one? No, he's not Tom Brady. But that doesn't mean that a lot of good can't come out of this season if he really is going to stay there for 3 years, and that's his intention. I think it begins here. I see 10 wins for the Jets. It's not going to win the division, but it is going to show that things are changing for the better in New York.
Okay, here's my thing. In 2008, when Brett Favre was quarterback of the Jets, their record through the first 12 weeks of the season was 8-3. They had a great run. And then they lost 4 of the 5 last games and finished the season 9-7 and missed the playoffs.
Yeah, they sure did.
I'm going to add one more loss to that record and make it 9-8, and that's what the Jets are going to score this season.
Well, that is entirely possible. That is entirely possible. And honestly, even that would be an up. I mean, everyone in the Jets, they're all hyperbolic. You know, everyone here in New York is like, it's Super Bowl or bust. No, it's not. If you've got Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, no, it's not. And then
the offseason trade of Aaron Rodgers to the Minnesota Vikings for Kirk Cousins.
Well, we'll get to Kirk Cousins. This fucking jabroni. We'll get to Kirk Cousins. Don't you worry about that. And but boy, that is entirely. But boy, Kirk Cousins on the Jets, I could see that. That is honestly wildly realistic. I mean, if the season goes for the Vikings the way I think it's gonna, so 9-8.
If the season goes as badly as I think it is going to go for the Jets, because I think they're going to go 9-8. Aaron Rodgers is going to destroy the locker room, a la CM Punk, and demands to be traded out, and he goes to Minnesota to play out the remainder of his career, and they send Kirk Cousins back.
Boy, that would be wild. That would be incredibly wild. I'm really hoping that, given the amount of accommodations that they've given Aaron Rodgers, that he wouldn't throw that kind of hissy fit. But you know what? You just don't know. Well, and the thing is we also have to consider is that the Brett Favre always wanted to go to Minnesota, but they wouldn't let him. So the Jets were always meant to be like a midway through kind of deal. You know, it was always supposed to be this way station, I guess, that Brett Favre had no intention of actually legitimately staying, I don't think, at least, in the New York at all. Where Aaron Rodgers seems to want to be here. So that's going to be...
Well, we'll see how long that goes.
We'll see how long that lasts. And the last team on this list is the New England Patriots. And Skyler, I will not lie to you, my friend. I have went through years and years and years and years of listening to Pats fans nonstop about this team and how great it is and how amazing and nobody can stand up to us and blah, da, blah, da, blah, da, blah, and then we took your quarterback and blah, da, blah. And now we are sitting here at the start of the 2023 season with Bill Belichick on the proverbial ropes, Mac Jones' job apparently threatened, and Bailey Zappi wanting to come in even though he's laying gigantic goose eggs. This team is the team of not missed opportunities, but deliberately walked by opportunities. There were a lot of talent that this team could have gotten in this offseason. DeAndre Hopkins being one of the highest profile, but he's not the only name. There were a lot of people that New England just decided to pass up on this year just because, we're kind of penny pinching right now. And my question to you is, why? Why is this the strategy from New England? And I promise you, it is going to bite them in the ass this season in a way that they are not expecting.
Well, there's the obvious reason why. It's because Bill Belichick lost the marriage to Tom Brady. He lost the divorce, and he can't admit it. And he can't admit that Tom Brady was the one that led the Patriots, not Belichick.
Yeah, well, and the sad thing is...
what more do we need for evidence than the desperate ploy of getting the corpse of Ezekiel Elliott?
Yeah, well, that's really it, isn't it? It's we missed our chance, we waited too long, and we didn't want to pull the trigger on actual players. No offense to Ezekiel Elliott, there was a time he was explosive. It is not 2023. It was kind of the last whimpering move from the Pats, and it's gonna show. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is not at the end of this season some push, if not to remove Belichick altogether, to at least strip him of his head of football and his general manager duties, which may or may not lead to his willful retirement, quote unquote. But if this season goes the way I think it's going to, there's definitely going to be calls for it.
But what do you think is going to be the record?
I think this team, whether Mac Jones gets hurt or he just doesn't play well, I don't know what it's going to be. But because of the lack of talent in this team, the Dolphins added people. The Bills are just clearly superior to the Patriots as far as their talent level goes. That does not need questioning. And the Jets added a ton of people. And the Pats did nothing. There's no way this team is going to be competitive with the rest of the teams in the East being as improved or as strong as they are or have been. I say 5-12 for New England. We're going to see a bad season out of the New England Patriots, and it's one that is going to be healthy for the franchise because they need turnaround. desperately.
5-12 or 4-13. They're going to have one of the worst records in football.
Yeah. And I would not be surprised in the slightest. And you hate to see it. Although part of me loves to see it.
Love to see
part of me really loves to see it, but you hate to see it.
After years of the Patriots lording over the NFL, it's finally good to see them take lumps.
Yeah, and I think it's also healthy for the fan base. It's kind of what I've been saying about the Yankees, too. It's like, you've been so good for so long that you need to remember what it feels like to be at the bottom of the ladder. You need this. In order for the health of the franchise, you need this. That's why I'm not mad. I'm a Yankee fan. I don't mean to talk baseball. I'm a Yankee fan, but I do not mind at all the fact that we are having the worst record we've had in 30 years. It is healthy for the franchise. Things will change because of this season, hopefully. And that's what I think is going to happen with the divisions. Well, let's just list here top to bottom. I have the Bills at 11-6, the Jets 10-7, the Dolphins 8-9, and the Pats 5-12.
Right, and I'm going Buffalo 14-3. I'm going Dolphins. I'm going to stick to 9-8. So are the Jets 9-8, and I have the Patriots going 4-13.
Yeah, and I think that both of those could definitely happen. And folks, leave your predictions in the comments below. We want to hear what you think. What you think's going to happen this year, and then we're all going to come back to this and laugh about how every single one of us was wrong or right. Let's go on to the North. Let's start, because we're going to do this in alphabetical order, let's start with the Bengals. Where do you see the Bengals ending up, Skyler?
Well, again, this depends on the Bengals being healthy and whether Joe Burrow can perform at the level that he needs to. If he can do that, I think this team is going to be second in the AFC to who I think is going to win the AFC. And I think they're going to go 14-3 as well as the Buffalo Bills. But because they beat Buffalo, they'll have the tiebreaker.
Wow, that's wild. That you're going to give the Bengals the 1 seed here.
No, I'm giving the 2 seed.
Oh, the 2 seed. The 2 seed. Well,
But they're going to tie the Buffalo Bills record of 14-3, but they're going to beat them in the game that they have head-to-head, so they'll have the tiebreaker.
Wow, that is a bold choice. But and well, actually, I guess it's bolder what I'm going to say than what you're going to say, because it is entirely possible that all of that does come to pass in the way that you have described it, and that would truly be something. Here's what I suspect. I suspect that we are going to see a bit more of a conservative effort in Joe Burrow's rehabilitation process. And as a result, this team might get off to a slower start than we want it to. And I'm not sure this team is really going to ever recover from it. And I know this is kind of ironic considering I said earlier about the Bills, what's changed to make people feel like they're going to take a step back. But I actually feel like the team that's going to take a step back that's at the top is the Bengals. I think this team is going to have a mid-season. Whether it's because Joe Burrow goes down because they rush him back too quickly or because they wait a long period of time and then they lose key players before Joe Burrow comes back, I think this is not going to be the Bengals' year to even make the playoffs. I'm giving them 8-1. Because I had to throw one tie in there somewhere because there's always one damn tie. So I gave the Bengals the tie. I'm giving them an 8-1. They're going to surprise a lot of people with how not as good as they've been they will be.
Alrighty then.
So then we move on.
I mean, the opinions expressed by Sean McCarthy are only strictly expressed by Sean McCarthy and do not reflect the opinion of Skyler Greenberg.
Right, and which we obviously, by disclaimer, this is our own separate predictions, and one of us will be right or neither of us will be right. It could be either. And the next one up is the Cleveland Browns. I don't have much to say about the Browns except that they might be the lowest IQ heads of franchise in the history of the NFL. These are small PP men making small PP moves. And yes, they have talent. I'm not saying they don't. They have Myles Garrett. They have the Chubberly boy. And they have theoretically they have Deshaun Watson, but my whole thing is this man competed in a few games last year. He did okay, and now he's coming back after 2 years of not playing for his first start. And what makes you think that this team has what it takes to compete with everybody else? I don't see it. I don't see Deshaun Watson coming back. I see Deshaun Watson coming back more like the way that Michael Vick came back when he played for the Eagles, where everyone said, oh, it's a dream team, it's a dream team. They gave him a stupid amount of money. Then he got hurt in 5 weeks. He couldn't run the way that he used to, and everybody wondered why the hell did we spend so much for him?
Well, yeah, but let's remember that first season that Michael Vick came back, he was actually good. It wasn't until the second season that he got worse.
Well, he was good, but he wasn't Falcons good. He was just good.
He was good enough to get the Eagles to the postseason, and that's all he needed to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, considering how much people were not too pleased, I suppose would be the way it was with the way the Eagles franchise had been going up to that point. I guess you can make that argument.
I mean, again, they were 10-6 in the 2010 season. They got to the playoffs. They lost to the Packers. It is what it is. But I don't have much to say on the Browns other than they're going to go 5-12.
Yeah, well, I went kind of similar. I went 6-11. And folks, if you're hearing Skyler seeming like he moved to another location, that's just because Skyler has to charge. So I'm sure you heard the updates over the course of the podcast. So just so you know, Skyler, and even though he's not from Los Angeles, he has to charge.
Yeah, think I'm wrong.
That's right. There you go. What he said. I don't speak Italian. Next up.
Screw you.
Next up is the Baltimore Ravens. And here's the thing about the Ravens. I believe that 6 years ago, this team would have been nasty. But I don't think that from what we've seen from Lamar Jackson and for how much he got paid, and what we've seen from Odell Beckham Jr., and considering how much he got paid, I don't see this as an elite team. I see this as an aging team that has really not proven its overwhelming success.
No, but there's still enough talent on this team that they're going to be a playoff team.
Yes, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. There is talent on this team, but I don't know if it's the talent of, oh my God, we're going to slay this entire division. It's going to be competitive. They're going to be in the top 2, definitely. But do I see them winning this division? No. I think they're going to be really, really close. But there's going to be, the Ravens are also guilty of some head-scratching losses in there. And let me ask you this, guy. Do you think in full confidence that either Lamar Jackson or OBJ play the entire season?
I have more faith in Lamar doing it than Beckham Jr.
And it's not like they don't have other options. I mean, Mark Andrews is a hell of a player. I don't want to take him out of the equation. I mean, he plays some terrific ball himself. It's not like there's only one option for Lamar Jackson. The problem is, Lamar Jackson is you were talking about modern-day Phillip Rivers. Lamar Jackson is a player that is incredibly dynamic, but hits a ceiling the second that the games really start to matter.
I think Josh Allen is more the Phillip Rivers. To me, Lamar Jackson is the modern-day Vic.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can make that case. As far as being able to run in some of the wild plays that Lamar does do. But I don't see, we've seen him in the playoffs, and we know that he's been in playoff games. He hasn't won any, but he's played them. And, I think it says a lot when Tyler Huntley leads the Ravens to a near victory over the Bengals in the playoffs last year. They didn't really need Lamar Jackson, and yet he still gets this exorbitant amount of money to come in and play with OBJ when people were... I also thought that was kind of weird. They were complaining about money, then they give Lamar his, and then they give OBJ his. I don't see it. I don't see it as a team that's going to win the Super Bowl, but they're going to be in the tournament. I say 10-7 for the Ravens.
I feel like they're going to go 11-6.
Very possible. Very possible. It's and so that leads us to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tell us what you think about Pittsburgh, Sky.
I like TJ Watt. I like Najee Harris.
Me too.
I do not trust for a second that Kenny Pickett is going to do anything.
Jury's still out on that one.
Like, we're going with a quarterback that really has not played. This is a tough one for me. To me, I know Tomlin is going to get them to 9-8. I just don't know how.
Well, see, you've kind of touched on why, on my kind of feelings for Pittsburgh. I don't know what Kenny Pickett's going to develop into. It's going to be a very interesting sophomore season for the lad. I think he showed promise last year. If he can stay disciplined about it, he might be an underrated star. This might be a star-making season for him if he can land some things right. It's just hard to say. It's just hard to say right now. But you mentioned TJ Watt, you mentioned Najee Harris. I'm going to mention the fact that over the course of the several years, whether it's through controversy or otherwise, Mike Tomlin has added some very good coaches onto this roster. In the form of Rich Saccherini, the guy who took the Raiders into the playoffs after the John Gruden fiasco. No matter what your opinions were on that, nobody expected the Raiders to get to that point with the backup interim coach. And the fact he was replaced by Josh McDaniels still offends me. But the Steelers were like, nah, come on, man. Come work for us. We got a great team here. So they've been slowly but surely accumulating coaches, good coaches, to be on the staff. And the depth of knowledge on this staff, that's how they're going to get to a winning record. So much so that this might be the boldest prediction I make in this entire podcast. The Steelers are winning this division. The Steelers are going to tie the Bengals. That's the game that's going to be the tie. And when I say it's going to be close, the Steelers go 10-6-1 and win because of that tie. It's going to be a tight division all across the board. My four is Steelers 10-6-1, Ravens 10-7, Bengals 8-1, and the Browns 6-11. But I do think the Steelers surprise a lot of people this year with how good they are.
All right, that's fair. And then I'm going predictable in Bengals 14-3, second in the AFC. Ravens 11-6
is fair for the Ravens. It is.
Oh, yeah, 11-6. Steelers 9-8, and Browns 5-12.
Which is those really aren't that different of predictions. And we'll talk about the playoff picture here right before we close out the AFC. Let's move on to the South. We will start with the Indianapolis Colts. Where do you put them, Sky?
Before I start with the Colts, can I just say that this is going to be the most confusing division for me?
This was hard to judge for me as well. I did not know where to put any of these teams when I looked at these guys and their schedules.
Because along with the NFC South, this is the division I could see where three teams could either win it or lose it. There's one stinker team in here for sure that's definitely going to lose it. But any one of these three teams that could win the division, and that includes the Colts. I think they're the least likely of the ones that could win it. I really don't know what to expect from Indianapolis. I mean,
Anthony Richardson's been okay, but it's preseason, so you can't base anything off that.
Again, we'll have to see. They're in a new era. Hopefully, Jim Irsay gets his dick out of his coke and doesn't go crazy.
Yeah.
But I could make a case that this is easily the weakest division in the AFC, and it may be the weakest division in football.
It could end up that way. It's been that way a couple of times. And so what do you got for record for the Colts?
I just feel like they're going to go through some growing pains, and they're not quite there yet. I think the Colts are going to go 7-10.
All right, well, I gave them the same record. This might be the first time you and I have given the same record to a team. here we are 9 teams in, but I also gave them 7 and 10 because I think in a lot of ways they are developing. I think the Anthony Richardson is an experiment. We'll see if it works out. As there are any quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks are always an experiment. No matter how much people try to amp these guys up and how much money goes into the promotion leading up into the draft, I know it's a whole money-making process for a good number of people, but if you're relying on drafting somebody, you do not know what you're getting. No matter who it is, you do not know what you're getting. This is taken from somebody who drafted Jameis Winston, so trust me on this one. You don't know what you're getting.
I mean, you could get Alex Smith, you could get Colin Kaepernick, you could get Brock Purdy.
Yeah. Or you could trade Bo Jackson away and he becomes one of the greatest running backs for another team. You just don't know. But in any case, when it comes to the Colts, I think that they've got a lot of things that they fixed from last year. Namely, no Matt Ryan. That helps a lot. That helps a whole lot. Because Matt Ryan, I mean, I almost feel bad for Frank Reich. Almost. It's just that, here's the thing. What is going to hurt this team, and what is going to make sure that this team does not go further than it should, is what's happening right now with Jim Irsay and Jonathan Taylor. Whether he gets traded or not, this is exactly the kind of thing you do not want happening 2 weeks before the season starts. You don't want a controversy where it's butting heads here for a running back contract so late into a running back difficult pool. And now you're going to try and make this case after coming out after a 4-touchdown season just because you changed agents. Yes, you were hurt at that time. And Jim Irsay doesn't have to be a bullheaded prick about it and go, yeah, everybody's replaceable, basically. You know, and it's like, this kind of drama from owner and running back, right as you're trying to change a culture, is going to derail the mood and the attitude of the season. And because this is such a momentum game in football, they may be a 10-7 team, but they're not going to live up to that potential because they don't have the energy necessary for it. I am also giving them 7 and 10. Next up, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I won't lie to you, Sky. When Trevor Lawrence first burst onto the scene, I said I didn't see anything in this kid. Good look. He has a good look. He can work. But I don't know if he's going to be world champion material. Then he got Urban Meyer as his head coach. And I said, well, this year just doesn't count. No matter what happens with Trevor Lawrence, this year does not count towards what he is capable of. And then last year he gets a semi-competent coach in Doug Peterson. He ends up having a pretty all right season. Almost beat the Chiefs. Almost beat the Chiefs. Good player. And I think Doug Peterson is instilling a good culture in that team. And they've added some weapons. Evan Ingram has improved greatly from his time on the Giants. And this Jaguars team is going to be scarier than we want to admit. I'm going 12-5 for Jacksonville.
Doug Peterson wins a Super Bowl and is only okay.
Well, because the subsequent years in Philadelphia were not okay.
He beat Tom Brady and the Patriots with Nick fucking Foles.
What is he, Kurt Angle? With a broken frickin' quarterback.
And he did it, too.
Well, that's also because that Eagles defense... Well, no, that was not a defensive game whatsoever. You may have a point there, Sky. But...
I mean, come on.
Well, but you never know, because some people are really good in some places and suck in others. So, the jury's still out on his time in Jacksonville, but it's promising. It's very promising.
I trust Doug Peterson more than the other coaches in this division. I trust Trevor Lawrence more than the other coaches in this division. There's not a lot of teams that I trust in this division. Jacksonville is the winner by default because they're the only team that can be trusted to somewhat competently get somewhere.
and make a run of it. Yeah.
Right. They're again going to be the weakest of the division winners. They're going to go 10-7, but they're going to win this division just because look at the other options.
Well, and that moves us to the Houston Texans, who have got new, they've also got a fresh coat of paint. They're also trying to move on from a disaster of a situation with Deshaun Watson. Davis Mills was not it. As much as he tried, he was not it. I give him credit for trying. And so that leaves us with CJ Stroud, the new quarterback, and we've got a new coach. It's never really a good sign when you have a completely new system and a rookie quarterback. There's only so far you can go in this league with those kind of parameters.
I agree.
Yeah. And it may not be, I'm going to give them a low record, but I still think that the attitude around Houston will be positive at the end of the year because there will be enough highlights to be able to build upon from somebody. There's going to be some stars made. Losing JJ and Deshaun Watson, who were the two bigger names, not being Andre Johnson, that your team has had in a long time. I think we're going to see some stars in Houston be made, even if their record doesn't show it. 5-12.
I think there's going to be some promise with the Texans, but I don't know how far they're going to go. They're going to finish last in this division, and it's not going to be too particularly close. I also agree they're going to go 5-12.
Yeah, it's a shame to see it, but it's kind of what Houston has been known for since this version of Houston has shown up in the league. They haven't really done much of anything with the occasional playoff berth, but there are brighter days ahead, I think, for Houston. It's just you're not going to see it this season, but there's going to be enough to keep the hope up for the season thereafter.
Agree.
And last up is the Tennessee Titans. Well, let's start with your comments, because I did two in a row.
Well, here's the thing. You were talking about how the Baltimore Ravens were the team that kind of, missed their window. Yeah. Tennessee has missed their window. Well, and, again, I feel bad for Derrick Henry running his best years away trying to get Tennessee over and just could not. This is a weird division because you have three rookie quarterbacks and old man Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, because Tannehill's no longer there anymore, right?
Quarterback.
Yeah,
no, now it's the quarterback Will Levis, the guy that was supposed to go number 1 overall, but he went in the second round.
Native of New Haven, Connecticut, actually. Yeah.
And that's the thing is that, I don't know what to expect from this. Look, Tennessee has the pieces to go on and win the division, but they also have the pieces to finish last. That's their potential. They're going to be somewhere in the cushy middle.
Yeah.
I still think they're good enough, and with this division, that they're going to get some wins, but I don't think it's enough to get them over the hump. They're going to go 9-8.
I'm actually pretty close in that with you, Sky, except I think that Will Levis is going to earn his position. For the simple fact that he was promised a first-round pick or whatever it was, and he got second, and I'm assuming that pissed him off enough to use it as inspiration. I'm hoping. But, they've got an exhilarating offense, and Mike Vrabel, whether the talent on the defense is there or not, Mike Vrabel's coaching is enough to make it work. But it is often, in the same way that the Bills have some of those head-scratching, how the fuck did you lose this? It is a very similar situation with the Titans where they lose some just head scratchers. And not even just like a 9-6 game. They'll lose by 25. They'll lose by, they'll just get trounced by a 4-6 team or, like a 4-12 team or whatever. It's the weirdest thing with Tennessee. However, I think Will Levis proves himself. I think they've got I like the balance of DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry with a young Will Levis to be able to kind of go through those growing pains, but have some veterans there to have his back with some of the wherewithal to make it work. But it is kind of it's now or never situation for a lot of these guys in Tennessee, such as a not getting any younger Derrick Henry and a not getting any younger DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going to say this team goes 10-7. And Will Levis earns his keep as a starter, at least for now. And we'll see what happens down the road.
But do you have Tennessee making the playoffs?
I do, actually. I do. They sneak in as the 7th wild card, basically. And so the South I have as the Jags 12-5, the Titans 10-7, the Colts 7-10, and the Texans 5-12.
Meanwhile, I have the Jaguars going basically 10-7, the Titans going 9-8. Again, this is such a weird division.
It is. It's hard.
I can see any team win it.
Yeah.
We got 3 rookie quarterbacks and old graybeard Trevor Lawrence. I don't think the Texans are going to get it there, though. They're still too far away. They're the 5-12 team.
Yeah.
And the Colts, well, I mean,
Yeah.
9-8, 8-9. It's interchangeable.
Yeah. So, then we move on to the West. And we begin with the Denver Broncos. Oh, man. Skyler, why don't you go first on Denver?
Russell Wilson is cooked. His last knee.
Couldn't have said it better myself, buddy.
Russell Wilson, for the sake of your own career, retire. Retire, bitch.
Yeah.
And he's only 34. He's not even that old.
I know. Well, and he's already got injuries, and the team's already got injuries. As of now, they're one of the teams that got hit the worst with the injury bug before the season's even started.
Yeah, 6-11, whatever.
Yeah, Now, I will admit I'm a little biased here because I'm a Bucs fan, but I've never liked Sean Payton. And it really has nothing to do with the feud. It honestly has to do more with the Greg Williams, Brett Favre targeting bounty hunter shit that Sean Payton never was held accountable for and never actually publicly denounced in his whole deal, or maybe had some sort of canned apology, but I always thought that he never really got the justice that he deserved in that whole deal. He was just allowed to keep his job. But this is what I'm going to say about this. We are going to see that in the same way that Belichick was exposed when Brady left, we are going to see just how exposed Sean Payton is after Breeze left. It's why he lost his job in New Orleans, and it's why he is not going to succeed in Denver. And also calling out Nathaniel Hackett for no reason whatsoever and belittling other people is not the way to go about your business. So he's still not endearing himself to me. I also give them 6-11, and they will deserve it.
Rightfully so.
They'll be better than they were last year, but not by much. Up next, LA. This is not the team that Ernie Ladd once played in. And
fuck you, Spanos.
And, well, here's the thing. I did what the coach did for this team. I flipped a coin. Because Coin Flip Staley, this fucking idiot, this guy, is the Tony Khan of head coaching. This guy is literally from the Staley tree of head coaching, as he calls it, for calling these plays. It is flip a coin. Heads, we're going to do the great thing. Tails, we're going to do something stupid. Let's see if it works. And it works about half of the time, just like flipping a coin does. And so I flipped the coin and said, are the Chargers going to have a winning season this year? And it was heads, so I said yes. They're going 9-8. They're not going anywhere until this guy is fired. Doesn't matter how big Herbert's contract is. And that's basically the only major move that this team has made the entire offseason. So there you go.
Okay. Are we ready for this bold prediction?
Please.
They're going to go 12-5.
It's entirely possible. I will give, listen, if Staley cleans up his act, that's entirely possible.
I don't think he's going to clean his act, but I think Herbert's going to carry them to that record.
If he stays healthy, if you keep in mind, folks, any one of these predictions could be completely derailed by the right injury in the right place. And it's entirely possible. They get some of the calls going their way, especially in these divisional battles, that no matter who they are facing, they always have a shot at beating. They could easily go 12-5. They could.
But yeah, I like this offense. This offense is the real offense that goes Burr. And not like Burr cold. I mean Burr as in they explode. Because they have so much talent on offense. And their defense is just good enough to keep them in games.
Well, and that's where Staley really loses his cred. Because that's where it cost them the most. All I had to see was that ending game between the Raiders and the Chargers that year, where Brandon Staley literally whiffed and hit his own head with his foot, forcing where they could have tied and both made the playoffs. And the Chargers literally just stuck their foot up their own ass and allowed the Raiders to win the game-winning field goal and keep them out of it. That said all I needed to know about Staley. But the talent, you might be right, Skyler, and the talent might just be good enough to overcome the inefficiencies of Brandon Staley.
Yeah, but they're definitely going to lose after that.
Yeah, well, that's definitely possible. And here come, and this is the team they might lose to, here come the Chiefs. So there's this guy, and I don't remember his name now. It's not Chris Logan, it's Chris something, and I don't remember what it is. This guy's holding out to week 8 for more money, is the whole point. And that is the only thing that is going on with the Chiefs that has changed from the Super Bowl winning team that they had last year to what I assume is going to be a top contender for the Super Bowl this year. And I said it, a little while ago, my opinion of this season, the storyline is who's going to beat the Chiefs. I don't see many people doing it. I think the Chargers win one because they almost always do. Just taking another quick look at their schedule here, which I have not done in a minute. I don't see any of the. Maybe the Lions surprise them. That would be maybe their second, and then the third, either to Philly or to maybe they lose to the Lions. Maybe the Lions and maybe I don't know. It's going to be really difficult to pinpoint losses for this Chiefs team because I think they're just as good as they've ever been. I'm going 14-3 and they destroy this 1 seed. Non-discussion.
Until someone can prove that they can beat the Chiefs are going to own the AFC. 15-2.
Wow! I didn't think you were going to have a better record than I had. But you know what? That's how good the Chiefs are. That's how good Patty Mahomes is. That's how good Andy Reid is. That's how good all of the names that were made. Literally, this dude lost all of his wide receiver weapons and went, okay, fine, and then then just kept winning. There's nobody right now that says to me that the Chiefs are not going to end up as the 1 seed when 18 weeks of football are done. Well, maybe the Raiders would stop them. Oh, couldn't say that with a straight face. Couldn't do it. Tell me what you think.
Can I just say
Vegas?
Just enjoy our sloppy seconds of Jimmy G as he game manages you a 6-yard check down to a 3-14 season. The second worst in the NFL.
Wow. I didn't think it was going to be that bad. Woo. Well, you've had more experience with Jimmy G than I have. But I'll tell you this, it wouldn't be Jimmy G that I don't have the faith in. It's Josh McDaniels I don't have the faith in.
I don't have the faith in either of them.
He has not proven to me that he is a head coach that is worthy of right now. And truthfully, say what you want about John Gruden. He might be an asshole, but he was a 4-0 asshole when they got rid of him for a variety of different comments, some of which was warranted, some of which they did him dirty. And that's why he and the NFL are in a really serious lawsuit right now. And that really, the problem with the Raiders, and this is coming from somebody who went through Norv Turner's era, so trust me, I know what I'm talking about at least a little bit here. This is a team where there is always something. It's always something with this team. There's some dumb shit going on somewhere regarding some garbage that they shouldn't have happening, because it's either a Josh Jacobs or a backstage, but, an off-the-field incident. Or, there's always something with the head coach says a bunch of racist shit in emails that get leaked, even though there were a whole bunch that could have been leaked and weren't. So it was a very selective and targeting release of leaked emails. Anyway, not to get into that whole deal, but 6-11 for this Raiders team. I think they tie the Broncos. I don't think they're going to be the drizzling shits, but I do not think they are going to be worth much of anything. And some of those wins might just be pure luck.
They're set to be in a division where they get pounded by every single team. They're going to go 0-6 in the division. Even the Broncos are going to get 2 wins over them.
Well, that's certainly a claim. So you're finished for the West.
My finish for the West. So 15-2 Kansas City, 12-5 Los Angeles, even though they should be San Diego.
True.
Broncos, 6-11. Who cares? And then the Raiders going 3-14.
And for the West, for me, I have the Chiefs at 14-3, the Chargers 9-8, the Raiders 6-11, and the Broncos 6-11. And that is the AFC. And now let's talk just briefly about the 7 teams that we have chosen for the AFC playoff picture and who we think will be the one who is bound. Which team from the AFC is Super Bowl bound?
Well, let's see. I mean, we have Kansas City, you have Cincinnati, you have Buffalo, and you have Jacksonville as your division winners.
Right.
Based off of my personal picks for, wild cards, I throw in a Los Angeles Chargers, you throw in the Baltimore Ravens, you throw in the random 9-18 that doesn't matter. It could be anybody at this point.
We'll say
for the sake of this.
We'll say Aaron Rodgers and the Jets because the media really wants them to.
Okay, fine. For this exercise, we'll say the 9-8 Jets. Until another team can beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs at Arrowhead, I won't believe that another team can beat the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead in the playoffs. So I have Kansas City coming out of the AFC.
I'm the same way. I have the 7 teams I have are the Chiefs get the 1 seed, Jags the 2 seed, Bills the 3 seed, the Steelers get the 4 seed, the 5th seed goes to the Jets, the Ravens get the 6th seed, and the Titans with the 7. So in the super wild card way that this goes, the Jags would play the Titans and demolish them. The Steelers would play the Jets, and the Jets would win that game because ain't no way Kenny Pickett beating Aaron Rodgers. I don't get this. This is a fantasy prediction, but there's got to be some realism into that. And then the Ravens and the Bills win that one, and that leads us to the Bills and the Jets go 1-on-1. The Bills and the Jets, and then the Chiefs. The Chiefs and the Jets play, and the Chiefs are going to be the ones that beat Aaron Rodgers, and the Jags are going to beat the Bills because, like you said, Josh Allen is the new Phillip Rivers. So that leaves us with the Chiefs and the Jags in the AFC Championship game, and like you said, Sky, until somebody can prove they can beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, you can't bet against that house. I'm saying the Chiefs make it to the
Right,
Super Bowl as well.
Right, on my wild end, like, we get the Bengals playing the Jets and getting absolutely destroyed. Aaron Rodgers goes to Minnesota in a huff. You get Buffalo. Buffalo and Baltimore would actually be a really interesting game, but I think Buffalo still beats both the Ravens just because they have better talent.
And depending on the late season injuries of the Ravens.
Right. You get the Chargers in Jacksonville, and I think this time the Chargers actually beat the Jacksonville Jaguars.
That's an interesting game. That's a very interesting game. I'd be interested to see how that one actually goes. As long
as the Chargers don't implode again.
Well, that's where coin flip Staley would hurt them. That right. Personally, now, I think that's where
the Chargers would absolutely get destroyed by Kansas City. The Buffalo Bills and the Bengals would go head-to-head again, and Joe Burrow continues his dominance over Josh Allen. And then you get the Bengals against Patrick Mahomes, and that'd be an interesting matchup, but I still can't see a way that they win.
Well, it's interesting because the Bengals were in Cincinnati when they beat the Chiefs when they went to the Super Bowl. So in Arrowhead, I mean, I really like the kind of the modern feud of Kansas City and Cincinnati. It's a unique feud. And I like having Cincinnati in the playoff picture. It's good for business. It's nice seeing fresh faces getting some top guy spots. And that's been refreshing to see from Cincinnati. Will it manifest itself? We shall see. Well, folks, we move on to the NFC. And this is going to be an interesting conference to grade because there's a lot of things that have changed. And while there is some level of excellence to be expected from the AFC, the same cannot be said about this conference.
It does feel like the power has shifted from the NFC to the AFC because the NFC used to be the power conference.
Yeah.
And now the AFC has become the class of it. Now, there are still some good teams in the National Football Conference.
Oh, without a doubt.
But it's not as defined, and there is opportunity for those willing to reach for the gold.
That's right. I think I have an idea of what you mean by that. But let's start out, and this is where it gets personal for us because both of our teams are in the NFC. So we're going to see how this goes. We're going to start with the East. And first up in our alphabetical list is, and I'm going by the nicknames, obviously, folks. I'm sure if you haven't caught that by now, I'm not going by the location. I'm going by the team name. We're starting with the Washington Commanders. And for as long as they will be called the Commanders, which may be only this year, I want to believe in Ron Rivera. But there's no way with the sale going on, no matter how good this team looks and feels, there's no way that sale isn't going to hurt this team's momentum, no matter how good Sam Howell ends up being. It's a rookie quarterback in a system that Ron Rivera has tried to instill, and they've got some defensive weapons too. In all credit to them, the Commanders have made some moves. They might surprise some people in some of these games, but do I see them breaking through the glass ceiling in a division that had 3 playoff teams last year? No, I really don't. It's going to be a difficult situation to figure out. There's going to be a lot of muddy waters to cross as the team goes through. I don't even know if it's growing pains as much as it is almost like a factory reset. And they're trying to get all that stuff done. And that makes me concerned that Riverboat Ron might be taking the riverboat right down the Potomac and out of Washington at the end of this season. But my record for Washington this year is 7-10. Not the worst, but not anywhere that's going to make them anywhere near relevant yet.
This is a really interesting division because this is the division that had 4 winning teams. These 4 teams all had winning records last year, and as you said, 3 of them made the playoffs. Washington is not going to be that team, unfortunately.
No.
They just don't have enough pieces to get to the playoffs, but I also don't think they're the worst team in this conference. They're just that middle ho-hum team, and not much is going to change until they get that and sail over with, but also just get past the past era of Washington football and go into the new era. They also need to figure out that arena situation because, boy, that stadium is nasty.
In rough shape. It's in rough shape.
But I think Ron Rivera will pull them to a respectable record of 7-9-1.
Ha! So you brought a tie in yourself, sir.
Yeah, I think Washington's going to do a tie.
They could.
You'll hear which team they're going to tie with in a second.
They could. Well, up next is Dallas. And, well, why don't you go first in this one?
Well, this is the team they're going to tie with, and they're going to go 11-5-1.
Wow, that's generous.
But, I mean, given the fact that, like, Dallas is going to do what they always do. They're going to win a bunch of games against the jobber teams. Then when they try to look good for the big time, they're going to flop like always. Dak Prescott, to me, is the middest of mid quarterbacks. He's perfectly serviceable for what he does, but he's not going to take you anywhere special.
It's okay. They've got backups. They've got backups up the ass. Backups. They've got backups up the ass right now. They've got Cooper Rush. They've got, what's the name of the other guy who played last night at the time of recording? The other guy they're trying to get rid of, and then now the newly acquired Trey Lance from your neck of the woods.
We'll talk about Trey Lance in a bit.
And Jerry Jones, listen, Jerry Jones is a wrestling character. He deserves, I mean, that's why I hired him as a referee for CIW, Colonial Impact Wrestling, link is in the description. But he is one of the funniest kinds of guys. And the little beep-boops you're hearing is Skyler charging. You know, he has to just do that occasionally to reaffirm that he is, in fact, charging. Charging and
Justin
cooking dinner.
Justin Glitchbot is using my place in the charging station.
That's right. That's right. You can't have too many things charging on Skyler at the same time. Don't ask where he plugs it in.
John Moxley.
Oh, God. And, well, Jerry Jones would like Justin Roberts, I bet. But, in any case...
I mean, what person has Jerry Jones not liked but little kids?
Yeah, I don't think I can speak upon that there, sir. I'm not sure I know anything about that. And would not want to
whatever you're saying,
Mr.
McMahon.
I'm going to let you talk to my legal team about that. And, editor, just put some sort of one-frame disclaimer up real quick. Okay, so, where do I put the Cowboys? I think Dan Quinn is the most underratedly good coach in the NFL. He was a good head coach, maybe not a great one, but he was a really darn good one in Atlanta, and it's a shame that Matt Ryan is Matt Ryan, otherwise they might have won that Super Bowl. And if Matt Ryan hadn't been Matt Ryan, we would be having a different conversation, but unfortunately Matt Ryan is Matt Ryan. Can you tell I don't like Matt Ryan?
I wonder why.
Yeah, and then that's why the catharsis when he went and stunk up the joint in Indy. But in any case, Dan Quinn is an incredible player, and he will keep the Cowboys competitive no matter what that offense is like. Because that defense, no matter what the talent is on that defense, which includes, but is not limited to Micah Parsons, they are going to shred. That defense is going to be insanely good. However, I don't think Tony Pollard is going to have the year that they expect because their offensive line is not as good as they think it is. I think Dak Prescott is going to throw interceptions no matter how many times people say that he won't. I thought Cooper Rush looked better last year than Dak did, all things considered, and they should have just seen if Cooper Rush would finish the season. But Jerry Jones just likes stirring shit up, and it was never in doubt. I think that Dak Prescott is in more jeopardy of losing his job this year than he is in any other year. And that pressure is either going to make or break this franchise. And if gun to my head, I'm going to say it's breaking it. I'm going to say 10-7. They're still going to have a winning season. I think they're still going to make the playoffs. But I do also think that they are going to get destroyed by the 2 seed of this playoff picture. We'll get to that in a minute. And that's going to be, maybe that might be the boldest prediction of the night when we get to who the 2 seed is. But Cowboys 10-7 for me.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Here come the Eagles. And what do you think about this Eagles team? Because in a way that I feel like the Chiefs are running the AFC, the Eagles didn't really lose a whole ton of their weapons either.
I mean, no, they just replaced what they have with Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah. With national championship winning Georgia Bulldogs, no less.
Back-to-back national champion Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah. And,
by the way, spoiler alert, they're going to go 3 in a row.
Well, Jim Harbaugh might lead them, Michigan, to a championship loss, so there's that.
Yeah, but we'll talk about college football on a different version.
Yeah, another day. Just to bring that full. So I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan, by the way, so like I understand your Harbaugh pain. Trust me, I understand your Harbaugh pain.
If anything, your pain might be worse than mine.
Because we felt it, yeah. The last time Michigan won a national championship, Tom Brady was there. Just putting it in perspective, folks. And but back to the Eagles, who are dogs, according to this head coach.
And they're going to remain dogs in this conference because there isn't many teams that can match them. There is going to be a little bit of a sophomore slump with Jalen Hurts, but it's not going to affect them because they have so many weapons.
They have so
and
much
the defense
trouble.
will carry him to games that they'll win, despite games that he may not succeed in. They're going to go 14-3 and be the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Well, I believe they're going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. I don't think they're winning 14 games because I think they are going to have, in the same way that the AFC East is insanely competitive, the NFC East is insanely competitive. And as a result, I think that this Eagles team goes 12-5, and 3 of those losses are in the division. They split with everybody, is my suspicion with this Eagles. And then they lose, like, maybe the one to the Chiefs and, another ragtag one here and there. So that's then maybe to the Jets, a surprise one to the Jets or something. But that's the Eagles, I'm going to say 12-5. They're still going to be the top seed. There's no one really going to... No one's going to be much I can't speak. No one's going to be much taller than that record-wise in the NFC. 12-5, I really feel like the cap is for what all these teams have and what these teams are. And that leaves the Giants. This one kind of rounds out the I'm from the area that the fans are from section of this podcast. And this is what I feel about the Giants. I watched Daniel Jones have 2 very incompetent head coaches in the Ben McAdoo, Pat Shurmur era and the Joe Judge era. He gets a good coach in Brian Dable, and they get a good general manager in Joe Shane. And they've added weapons defensively that make you feel like they're going to be a more consistent threat to containing the ball, which is one of their major problems. The real question is Daniel Jones really worth $40 million a year? That's the real question. They broke the bank on them, and Saquon Barkley figured a 1-year negotiation deal out. He's probably the guy, running back-wise, who did the smartest move and ended up with the most money. It's a situation where they had to play it, probably that's about as well as the Giants could have played it, so they could get some good draft choices and do a lot of further depth. The question is this team a team that is going to be able to compete talent-wise with the rest of the league? I think so, but they're going to do it in traditional Giants fashion of losing some games that they probably should win and winning some games that they probably should have lost. I say that they also go 10-7. And they end up in second in this division because of some weird-ass tiebreaker they have with the Cowboys.
Well, I have never been a believer in the New York Football Giants under Daniel Jones. I think
Rightfully
they should have started rebuilding.
Rightfully so.
I feel like they should have started rebuilding instead of giving him that contract. They should have traded Saquon Barkley. They should have just said, you know what, this isn't going to work. And as long as the Eagles are in this division, we're not going to be able to do much. We should just start rebuilding, bottom out, and get draft picks and get prospects, and then we'll go for it in like 4 or 5 years. As long as they continue to have the mediocrity that is Daniel Jones, they will go nowhere. And they're going to take a step backwards because of all the controversy and all the drama and all the bullshit. 8-9.
It's possible. It's entirely possible. This is going to be hilarious. So to round this out, my East is the Eagles 12-5, the Giants 10-7, the Cowboys 10-7, and the Commanders 7-10. And I do still think the Eagles, the Giants, and the Cowboys all make the playoffs.
Well, I have the Eagles going 14-3 and winning the conference. I have the Cowboys going 10-5-1, which is weird to say.
11-5-1.
Well, 11-5-1, whatever. Yeah. The Giants going 9-8, and the Commies going a respectable 7-9-1.
Which is, and all of that could definitely be. I mean, it's not even that far. I mean, we're kind of saying similar stuff. So this is it's going to be an interesting division with the East. And then we move on to the North. Now, this is where I think I'm going to make the most... Well, I don't even know if it's that controversial, to tell you the truth. This is the division... You know, there's always one division that just sucks harder than any other division in the NFL?
Yep. Last year it happened to be the entirety of the South.
Yeah, that was it last year. I think it's going to be the North this year, the NFC North. I think all of these teams are going to be remarkably bad. Except for the one that has the winning record that wins it. We start with the Chicago Bears. I will spoil it for you. It's not them.
Do you believe in Justin Fields?
I think that there is something unique about Justin Fields that is captivating the Chicago Bears fan base into believing that there is something to cultivate. You don't go 3-13-1 or whatever their record was last year and still leave with hope in the quarterback the way that they do unless you see something truly special in the kid. And I think they've done a good job. Has Eberflus, the head coach and the general manager, the new general manager that they have done a good job of adding weapons around him to be able to work his style with. It's not necessarily going to manifest itself into a playoff berth, but I do think this team moves up in quality a little bit. They're not going to have that kind of bad of a record. They're going to have a losing record. I'm going to say 7-10 for Chicago. But with things moving in the right direction for the franchise as a whole.
This is tough to grade because I don't know how Chicago's going to do. They ended last year on a 10-game losing streak.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
So are they that team that was 3-4 after 7 weeks and we thought maybe there's something there? Or are they the team that's going to go 10 games in a row and lose? I feel perfectly in the middle with this prediction. I don't know if Justin Fields will improve that much to carry them over the hump. They still will need more offensive weapons. They're not going to be terrible, though. I think they're going to go like 6-11.
Fair. Definitely fair.
Like, they're going to go places, but they're not there yet.
Yeah. Well, and then we move on to the team that I think is there, but they're not going to be so there that people are going to actually be worried about them in the playoff picture. The Detroit Lions. this. Go ahead, Sky. This is. Why don't you go first on this one?
This is, again, this division is so weird. Detroit is being hyped as the team of the future. I mean, basically, they are the gym for the kid standing over the other kid with a basketball hoop saying, the future is now, old man.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it's with Jared Goff at quarterback. If they had another quarterback that I believed in, then maybe.
Well, this is the way I would describe this. This feels very similar to the way that people felt during peak Matthew Stafford in Detroit, where the team is good. They have some good weapons around them. However, there's just something missing. And I love Dan Campbell, the person. He feels so genuine, but Dan Campbell's track record in the NFL has not been a lot of wins. It's been kind of an equal number of wins and losses. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing, because I love his passion. And I love the fact that he's so passionate about the team. When they went like 1-7 and he was literally crying because he sees the boys so into it, so into it. And that's the kind of heart you wanted to see out of Detroit. And I think that was a really defining moment for the team. And beating the Packers last year, making sure they had no shot of getting in the last moment, basically taking Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay, is significant. But can you say with a straight face, and I cannot, that this Lions team is going to make major waves in the playoffs? No. I think they make it to the playoffs because they're going to be the best of the average division at best. And this is going to be the one time that 9-8 is going to be enough to get a divisional win. But it's going to come from Detroit. They will make the playoffs. That will make people happy, but I don't expect much thereafter.
But that's the thing, is that if there was any year that they're going to do it, it's during the year where there's a changing of the guard in the NFC North, because the Packers no longer rule the roost.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And
maybe the Detroit Lions will finally win a game at Thanksgiving.
That'd be great. That'd be good. What was your record for them?
I mean, here's the thing. I think Detroit's going to improve. I am optimistic, and I do have hope. I'm going 10-7.
Realistic. That is they could easily get 10 wins this year. They easily could. I'm hesitant to believe that Dan Campbell is going to break that ceiling, no matter how much I like him. That's my worry. But are they a 10-win team? Absolutely. Absolutely could be.
In that division, they do.
Absolutely. Then, speaking of the Packers, I actually think I was kind of generous to this team. I think that there's a lot of pressure on Jordan Love right now. And I don't believe that the young lad is quite ready for the amount of pressure he is about to have on his shoulders. Aaron Rodgers came in out of necessity because he had to come in and show what he was capable of, and Favre left and Rodgers was ready to go. Do I think that Jordan Love has that same chip on his shoulder, having sat for as long as he has? I don't know. And I don't think I've seen any evidence to imply that he is going to be that guy for the Green Bay Packers. I think there is a concern about the rest of the team, let alone Jordan Love, but there's been a lack of depth in the rest of the team, namely the defense, over the past couple of years that I do not think they've improved on because they've been so entangled in this Aaron Rodgers situation. And that, I think, is going to ultimately undo Matt LaFleur, who is going to lose his job, I almost guarantee, at the end of this year. And it's not going to be a fun year for the Packers. It's going to be a rough transitional period for Green Bay. 6-11.
I believe, as the phrase is said in wrestling, it's time to job.
Yeah.
And that's what the Packers are going to do. They're going to go 4-13.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I believe that I am being generous when I give them 6-11. I'm
not.
Yeah, I'm giving them some serious benefit of the doubt. But you very well may be right in that endeavor. And that brings us... Oh, go ahead, Scott.
God damn it. It brings us to this team.
It brings us to the Vikings. Please, after you.
I'm giving the Vikings to the division win, but this is the last time they're going to win the division under Kirk Cousins once he gets traded to the New York Jets after another disappointing playoff series.
Yeah.
They're going to go and they're going to win this division because there's literally no other option except the Detroit Lions, and they're going to go 11-6, but I do not for 1 second believe that they are contenders in this conference.
And you know, the sad thing is, when it comes to Kirk Cousins, if you really want to get to Kirk Cousins is a tremendous regular season quarterback. His numbers are great, but he has not once had the team around him to make himself anywhere beyond a regular season quarterback. He has not had the talent, and I said long ago that the dumbest move this Vikings team ever made was trading 2 1/4 interchangeable starting quarterbacks with a system that was working for Kirk Cousins. And it is shown with Kirk Cousins being average at best, even though his numbers are good, but the teams are average at best that he's on. And you can blame Tampa Bay for getting that dude over, because it was a comeback win against Tampa Bay when he was at Washington, where he had the "you like that" thing, and that picked up, and of course that's what got him over. So Tampa Bay once again helping out a young talent to earn his keep and keep another team away from championship wins. And here's the thing, they are really going to regret getting rid of Dalvin Cook. And he's not the only person that left in that Vikings team this year. They had a lot more weapons leave than they did come in, and it's going to show. This whatever amount of regular season wins they had, it is not going to be so this year. And we are going to see just how difficult it is for Kirk Cousins when he has even less of a team around him than he did before. I'm going 7-10 for the Vikings. I think that they are not going to be that good.
My only thing with Minnesota is that they still do have some pieces around them. Justin Jefferson is currently one of, if not the best wide receivers in football. And you know how Dalvin Cook has basically carried Kirk Cousins for the last 5 years?
Well, they're going to miss his blocking more than anything else. But it's true. So what do you got for the full
what's our
rack?
final records for this division?
Yeah. So Lista, what do you got for your rack up?
So again, I got Minnesota going 11-6 and winning this division. I have the Lions making the playoffs at 10-17. Again, this is such a weird division because easily these could be flip-flopped. I could easily see Detroit winning the division over Minnesota.
It's possible.
It's a weird division. Chicago's going to go 6-11, and the Packers are going to job 3-4. Did I say 4?
You said 4-13. You said 4-13. And
okay.
Yeah, and that is our way through the North. All right, well, we've saved the most personal divisions for last. This is where we're gonna cook. And yeah, I don't know how this is gonna go down. Here comes the NFC South. Okay, we're starting with my boys. And go ahead, Sky, and tell me why we're getting the number 1 pick next year.
You're not getting the number 1 pick next year.
Oh, good. I'm optimistic. Then.
You're either getting number 2 or number 3, though.
Okay, fine. We'll trade up.
Probably. This division is shit.
Well, kind of.
But now you take a look at it.
Kind of.
They may end up being the worst division in football.
It's possible.
It's between the 2 Southern divisions.
It's so why Tampa Bay so low?
Because I'm still convinced that they don't have the talent to beat the other teams in the division. And even though the NFC is a weaker division, a weaker conference, they're still going to lose a lot of games. I don't know how you're going to score points. I mean, you have Baker Mayfield as your quarterback.
We do. You
don't have a defense.
I don't know about that, but we've lost a lot of good players on our defense.
You go on 3-14 and you're liking it.
Well, that would not be.
You like that?
That would not be outside of Tampa Bay's MO. Truthfully, that I won't lie and say that's unrealistic. I don't think it's gonna be that bad for Tampa Bay. Now, I have no delusions of grandeur that this team is gonna have a winning record. Not with Todd Bowles in charge. Mr. Mid, I'm not getting upset at anything Bowles. Mr. Even Keel himself. Mr. I don't want to ever express any emotion other than bland. You know, I'm seriously. It's the sad thing is, I have cooked steaks with more sizzle than Todd Bowles has. And it will not be Baker Mayfield that fails Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, via Todd Bowles, will fail Baker Mayfield. Because I truly believe with the amount of arrogance this kid has, he knows this is his last shot. This is it. He doesn't work in Tampa Bay, it ain't working. And I don't know if that necessarily means that Baker Mayfield sucks this year. I don't think he's going to be setting any records. I don't think he's going to be, breaking the glass ceiling and really shocking people with, this incredible where did this come from style. But I do think that he's going to be better than he was in Carolina. I think he's going to be better than he was in LA. I still believe that the Browns did him especially dirty considering how he was working with two broken legs basically. And, that didn't stop him from turning him into a playoff run. That was Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was just as much a part of that as anybody else. From the Browns not making it since 2002 into the playoffs, into nearly beating the Chiefs. In Arrowhead, no less. That happened. So it's not like Baker Mayfield can't succeed. It's just I don't think he will succeed because I don't think that the head coach is valuable enough to make the hard calls when it counts, to allow Baker Mayfield to play the kind of ball that he needs to play. They don't have a running game anymore. They don't have an offensive line anymore, so he's, especially with the news that Ryan Jensen may never play for the NFL ever again, which is a really tough blow for the offensive line. There's defensively, the talent base. Shaq Barrett's great. He's still here. Levante David is still here. Charlie Winfield Jr. is still here. A lot of the other teams had to leave. And now, keep in mind, everyone in Tampa knew this was going to happen when Jason Light, our general manager, bought us the Super Bowl in 2020 and got us Tom Brady and Leonard Fournette and LaShawn McCoy and everybody. When he bought everybody, Ndamukong Suh was there the year before. The JPP. The list goes on. That whole defense. Devin White, who wanted to trade and now is going back to work. And if he tries and applies himself, this defense will keep Tampa in games. But this coaching will keep us losing games. I'm going 6-11. And they're not going to be the worst team in this division. I don't think. They're going to be bad, but they're not going to be bottom of the barrel bad. That honor goes to the Atlanta Falcons, who I believe, while they have made some minor changes and they've made, they've picked up some players, I don't trust this coaching staff. I don't trust that coaching staff either, honestly. If you ask me, gun to my head, whether they're going to get it done, I don't see with the schedule that Atlanta has and the coach they have and the players that I can't even name at this moment that they're going to beat teams like Miami and anyone in the AFC North, the Bengals or the Steelers or, the Lions. I don't think they won't be the Jaguars. They probably won't beat Tennessee. They might be the Vikings. They won't beat the Saints. I don't think either time, actually. They have a softer schedule. Atlanta's got a softer schedule than I thought, but I think that they're still going to suck. 4-13 for Atlanta.
You're starting a rookie quarterback with a bunch of players that are not real weapons. I mean, I love Drake London. I think he's a really good wide receiver. I hope that Kyle Pitts will finally be good.
But that's all they've got right now is hoping that players might be good.
But yeah, as long as Atlanta continues to be under incompetent ownership, they're going to continue to be incompetent. 5-12.
Yeah, that's fair. Then we get to Carolina, and I don't know what to make of this. I don't know.
The thing with Carolina is that because of this division, they are second by default.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the truth. It is genuinely the truth because I had no better place to put them either because I think that Bryce Young is going to keep them in games. I see what people are saying in Bryce Young. There is something there with him, but this is Frank Reich, and this is still a team that really doesn't feel like there's cohesion involved yet. It's a new culture, which is going to be difficult. If Todd Bowles weren't the incompetent coach he was, you'd think this Tampa team could be a better team than this, but the Panthers, I see 7-10 for them. One game over Tampa Bay. They're going to be okay, but there's still more to go for Carolina.
They're going to show signs of promise, but they're still going to be a bottom-of-the-barrel NFC team finishing 6-11.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, in fact. And now we get to Nolans, the Saints.
Who win this division by default.
Yeah, tell me.
But not because they deserve it.
Okay, go on.
Realistically speaking, we could see a team win a conference or division with a losing record because that's what the Saints genuinely could be.
It's what we did last year. It's what Tampa did last year. 8-9, it was good enough.
I'll be generous and say they win 9 games because the AFC division they have to play is the South, so they have a chance. And given the rest of the teams that they have to play in this division, they have a chance. But 9-8, oof.
Okay, here's what I suspect to Maffei. Dennis Allen is not that bad of a coach. He was playing with Andy Dalton last year. How much do you expect to get out of Andy Dalton in 2022, realistically?
Yes.
And yet they still won 7 games with Andy Dalton, interchanging Taysom Hill, who played quarterback occasionally, as a wide receiver, and they still ended up having some halfway decent matches. I think that Derek Carr got brutally handled dirty in Las Vegas. I think that's going to piss him off enough to prove that he was the reason that the Raiders became players in the wild card the time that they did, and losing Derek Carr before the wild card is what ultimately ended up killing them. I don't get the hate for Derek Carr. He's not the greatest. He's not the worst. But I think this Saints team is going to be better than people think. They've been secretly adding good weapons for the past 3 or 4 years, even when they had no cap space for it. I know he's not getting any younger, but Honey Badger is still on this team. They still have Alvin Kamara, no matter how much backstage goo-gaw they've got going on. And like you mentioned, the schedule that the Saints have alludes itself to winning games. I'm going to say this Saints team goes 11-6, with at least 5 of those coming from division wins.
I think you're being very generous.
I am being very generous, but I think that don't sleep on this Saints team. Don't sleep on this Saints team because they could very quickly and very suddenly be a force to be reckoned with, allegedly, at least on paper. At least on paper. So in summary, in the South, I've got the Saints at 11-6, the Panthers 7-10, the Bucks 6-11, and the Falcons 4-13.
Right, and I have the Saints going 9-8, the Panthers going 6-11, Atlanta going 5-12, and Tampa Bay going 4-13. But I'm going to be honest, any of those could flip flop.
Yeah, it is entirely possible. And now we get to the West, and well, let's start with the team that is numbers. San Francisco. Well, yes, we'll start with the 49ers.
Want to go Arizona?
I guess, well, do they do Fs? I mean, do they count that as an F? Because I've seen 9, sometimes the number is before the alphabet starts. It depends on the style. You know what, let's go to Arizona first. Because if you want me to be honest, I think this is the team that is the absolute number one draft pick getter team in this league. This is the team that is going to suck.
Right, but what record do you give it?
I am probably going to be generous when I say this, because Kyler Murray, he's done. He's done. You think Russell Wilson is cooked. Kyler Murray didn't even turn on the stove. 3-14.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to go one step further.
I knew you would.
We're going to go see history. And this Arizona team is going to go 0-17.
Wow. Not even giving it a win against Tampa Bay, huh?
This is a team that is being picked apart and being taken apart.
Dismantled.
In order to rebuild. But the problem is that they've taken apart so many pieces. I can't name you a player besides Kyler Murray. And he may not even start the season, but he's dealing with an injury.
Still.
So, I think that the Arizona Cardinals are going to go 0-17, have the worst record in the history of the National Football League, and make everything that Cleveland ever dreamed about a nightmare.
They should probably just give back the national championship win that I forget which team says the Bidwells stole from them from 1927. Because that's allegedly why the Cardinals have been cursed and the Bidwell family has been cursed. Because that's where it's from eventually. There's a whole history of that. I read something. There is an NFL Films thing about it. But yeah, this ain't gonna be fun for Arizona. But at least they have their hockey team to fall back on.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You didn't have to go that dirty.
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. Sorry. Sorry. Sorry, Arizona.
Oh.
It'll get better. It'll get better. Someday it'll get better. Just not this season. Now let's go on to the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm going to I'll tell you what. Because I let you go first in my favorite team, so I'm going to go first in your favorite team.
All right. Rip my team.
Okay, here's the thing. You are making the playoffs. Make no mistake, you are making the playoffs. There's no way, no matter how Brock Purdy plays, there is so much talent offensively and defensively that this team retained where they didn't have to retain it. John Lynch didn't have to retain any of these people. But he kept a lot of major names for the knowledge that the quarterback piece, in a rare circumstance, hardly mattered because there's so much depth everywhere else. And it's wild how that is developed and how John Lynch has built this team. That's why I've got his jersey. Because John Lynch is a GM, in fact. And he has really done a great job with this Niners team. However, are we so sure that if, God forbid, Brock Purdy goes down with an injury or he has some sort of sophomore slump, even though the Tampa Bay and Tom Brady got him over as a quarterback in a 35-7 destruction of Tampa Bay's relevancy, And you want to talk about the turning point in the franchise. Look at that game. And and that was the day that signified the entirety of what Tampa Bay's going through right now. And I want to believe that Brock Purdy's the guy. But this is not the first time San Francisco has gone through something like this. So I'm hesitant to give them the division, and I'm hesitant to give them this monstrous record that everybody thinks they're going to have. I think they go 10-7 with some confusing losses that may be as a result of a couple of weeks or maybe even a month of a Brock Purdy injury sandwiched in between this season that would normally make this season one for the ages for the Niners.
Well, here's the thing. I get why you think that.
But you're wrong and stupid.
But you're wrong and stupid. For one thing, you could put myself as the quarterback of this team, and we'll score at least 24 points a week, because all I have to do is hand the ball off to CMC or Debo, and we'd be done with, right?
That's what I'm alluding to. It's like the way that this team is built, it's amazing that the quarterback position is as almost irrelevant as it is.
Right. This is the one team where it does not it really almost doesn't matter who the quarterback is. They can win without the quarterback. The issue with this division is the fact that the 49ers are still the best team in it, and they will get challenged. There is a team that's going to challenge them, but that team is not going to push them to be at the height that they need to be. Because of the way that this conference is structured and where teams are right now, there's only two teams that realistically stand a chance of being contenders. It's the Eagles and it's the 49ers. So the 49ers are barely going to be the second seed with a record of 13-4.
Wow. Shit. Well, I hope you get it. Honestly, I hope I'm wrong. I hope you have that good of a season, Skyler. I genuinely do.
There's one game that right now I have circled as being whether or not it makes or breaks the season. December 3rd, 49ers go to Philadelphia.
Well,
that's where the conference is going to be decided.
That could be a preview of what's to come if they play their cards right. I mean, it's going to be interesting because you've got a lot of interesting games. The game against the Giants, the Niners should not overlook. You know, the game against Dallas, it would be fine. Cleveland and Minnesota, you'll be fine. The Bengals might be tough. Jacksonville might be tough. You will probably destroy Tampa Bay. We'll talk about Seattle in a second.
Those Seattle games are not a gimme.
No, they're not. Well, we're going to talk about Seattle here in just a second. But, you know, and that's a tough stretch in general. You get the chip shot with Tampa, and then you get the Eagles sandwiched between two Seahawks games. And then you get a reprieve in Arizona, and then you're at Baltimore. So there's going to be some wins it's going to be close. And if you can clutch those wins, those one-score game wins against those tough teams, you very well could go 13-4.
Right. This is very much a thing where this conference and the way the schedule's laid out should be giving to the 49ers, but it won't be.
Yeah. It's theirs to lose, perhaps. I could definitely understand that point. But I do not believe that the formerly and should still be St. Louis Rams, now in LA, I do not believe they are going to be the immediate threat to San Francisco's reign.
Yes and no, because the way that the Rams play is very annoying. They're very opportunistic. They're very stubborn in the way that they play. They will surprise some teams. They're going to go a decent record of 7-10. And they will upset at least one or two teams along the way.
Rams are known to be stubborn. It's like one of their defining qualities. And, you know, perhaps, stubborn as a goat. A ram is a goat. And, and I actually think they're going to do better than that, to tell you the truth. In the same way, listen, here's the thing. If Matthew Stafford doesn't get injured last year as early as he did with as devastating an injury as he did, do the Rams have the meteoric fall that they did? Like a record fall from hero to zero. Do they do that? No, they probably don't. They probably go maybe more like 9-8 or maybe 10-7. And they still maybe make a playoff berth. Because they have Cooper Kupp. They have Aaron Donald. They still have quality players on that team. You know? And it's not necessarily all on the shoulders of Sean McVay for the reason that season went the way it did. I think they go back to their winning ways here. I don't know necessarily if they're going to break the glass ceiling. I don't think they make the playoffs. But I think they're the only team with a winning record that misses the playoffs. I'm giving them 9-8.
The thing with the Rams is that, yes, they have Aaron Donald, but who else do they have on defense?
Exactly. That's why it's not more than that. And they've lost a lot of those keys. It's true, but I also still believe that Sean McVay is a very competent coach.
But at the end of the day, with the high-powered offenses that exist in the NFL, defenses are going to get shredded. And unless you have a solid core defense, you're not going to do well. I love Aaron Donald. He may be the best defensive player in the league, but he has no support whatsoever.
But he can't play every position. You know, and that's the whole deal. And then we get to Seattle. Why don't you go first?
Who were the surprise of last year's NFL season?
Yes, and I think they're going to be even more of a surprise in this season. I think this team has gotten better than they had last year. They're another team that's been secretly adding weapons defensively, even more so than what Geno Smith has on the table. They've been adding defensive weapons that I think are going not necessarily be Legion of Boom era good, but they're going to be, if Geno Smith can prove, which he already has to some degree, that he can have himself a quality passing season and be one of the best receivers in the league. He got a contract extension of his own. I think it was $37.5 a year, something like that, which was modest enough to where Seattle can keep working and keep building around him. And Pete Carroll, I still believe in Pete Carroll. He's a good coach who we didn't realize just how cooked Russ was getting in Seattle until he moved to Denver. That's, I think, the opposite situation of Brady and Belichick, where Carroll ended up being the one who was better than Russell Wilson. And that's why I believe that this Geno resurgence is going to continue in Seattle and actually turn a lot of heads and win this division at 11-6.
I think they will also go 11-6. They're going to be just behind the 49ers, but they're still going to be one of the best. They may be the third best team in the NFC, but that also kind of proves how weak the NFC is.
Yeah, it definitely does. So as we wrap things up here, let's talk about the NFC, and then we'll talk about our Super Bowl and who's going to win it. I'll start with, well, actually, I did mine last time. Why don't you go through yours first this time?
So we have the Eagles having the first seed, the 49ers having the second seed. The third seed, this is the tough part. Like, I want to believe in the Detroit Lions, but I can't trust them.
I know.
So as annoying as it is, I think the Vikings still are going to take that division and are going to be the third seed. Mm-hmm. Then New Orleans is the fourth seed. Seattle, the Dallas, and Detroit will make up the bottom three teams. Of course, the 49ers will destroy the Detroit Lions. I think in this scenario, because of records, that would mean that Dallas would play Seattle. That's a fun matchup.
And I think Seattle would probably end up coming out with the win.
Yeah, I trust Geno Smith more than Dak Prescott. Imagine saying that 5 years ago.
I know. That's wild to think, but I agree wholeheartedly.
And then you get New Orleans and it'd be New Orleans and who else I said? I don't remember anymore.
It was New Orleans and I believe, who was the who was the 5 seed in that? That would be the Lions. Right?
I had the Lions at the 7th seed.
Oh, the Lions. Okay.
No, I had Dallas as that seed. Dallas would probably beat.
Dallas might beat the Saints.
Yeah.
Which would then lead to you, I believe, playing the Cowboys again.
It'd be us. No.
No, it'd be the Eagles and the boys.
It'd be the Eagles and the boys and the 49ers and the Seahawks.
Yeah, and
then 49ers, Eagles.
Go ahead.
I want to say the 49ers win that, but I'm not sure.
I've toyed with the idea of the 49ers and the Chiefs getting a second round at the Super Bowl. I thought of that myself. It's okay to do it, Sky. You are a fan of the team. It's totally okay to do it.
But I know this team will let me down, and they'll let me down on the biggest stage. I think they lose again to the Eagles.
So you're going to repeat last year's Super Bowl?
I'm going to repeat last year's Super Bowl and last year's NFC Championship game.
Okay. Now, I think that's going to be a very interesting game. Here's what I think's going to happen, and this is where I just started saying, the NFC is going to be what it is, so let's have a little fun with it. I think we're going to see a shock team make the Super Bowl on the NFC's behalf. A team that maybe some would say maybe had no business being in that position, but it's not like they haven't done that before. So here's the bracket I've got set up. The Eagles take the 1 seed. The 2 seed is going to the Saints because their record, because of how easy it was, is still going to get them a tiebreaker over the Seahawks somehow. Maybe the Saints beat the Seahawks on their way. That's a surprise, one of the 6 losses the Seahawks have. I went back and forth with this, who got the 2 and 3 seed. I think the Saints end up with the 2 seed, the Seahawks with the 3 seed, the Lions with the 4 seed. The Niners get the 5th seed, the Giants get the 6th seed, and the Cowboys get the 7th seed. Which means, at Super Wild Card Weekend, Saints boys, I do believe that the boys beat the Saints. Or no, I actually think the Saints beat the boys. Because I think Derek Carr is going to surprise, I'm better than Dak Prescott. And that will be the knife in Dak Prescott's chest and the last of his time in Dallas, is my suspicion. So the Saints beat the boys. The Seahawks and the Giants. I'm going to have the Giants beat the Seahawks here. In the Daniel Jones versus the quarterback that benched Eli Manning, Geno Smith. And I'm going to say that Pete Carroll crumbles and Geno Smith has just a horrid game as Brian Dable outcoaches him and the Giants move on. And in the game, the 4 seed, the Lions, against the 5 seed Niners, I am not stupid. The 49ers are clearly going to win that game. And so then, that leaves us with the Eagles and the Giants and the 49ers and the Saints. And in that game, the 49ers catch the Saints. Derek Carr's luck runs out. Even though he is at home, the 49ers show Derek Carr that, you can't go that far, and it's always nice to not have the Saints make it into the championship game. So the 49ers still move on against the Saints. And Giants-Eagles, I'm going to say that the Giants shock the Eagles. And there is going to be some wild calls in that game. It's going to be a tough game, but I do not see the blowout that there was last year. I think the game is close. I think it comes down to maybe some ridiculous calls from Brian Dable, some bold choices that catch Nick Sirianni by surprise, and the Giants move on. Leading to...
I have a question for you, Sean.
Marijuana.
Yes, but what kind of marijuana are you smoking? Now, in no way do you have the Giants pulling a Giants and winning the Super Bowl against the Tom Brady of the league.
Hey, just let me get through this, okay? Just let me get through this. So it's the Giants and the Niners. And this game is an incredible game that the Giants also win. Because now they're on a roll.
Bitch.
Now they're on a roll. There's no stopping this team now. They beat the Eagles. Nobody suspected they'd beat the Eagles, and now they're like, we're making this happen. We are making this happen. And in the Giants-Niners NFC Championship game, the Giants shock the world and make it into the Super Bowl. But Daniel Jones is not beating Patrick Mahomes.
But you're going to have him beat the Eagles and the
I'm having him beat the Eagles and the Niners, but I don't see them beating Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. I don't. I think it's going to be a dream run for the Giants, and it's going to further cement that Brian Daboll is a guy that they need to keep around. And that's something that the Giants have really lucked into, getting this. The one shining moment of the Gettleman era is somebody that can get something out of Daniel Jones. And I think we see it manifested here in 2023, 2024. Now, I said I was having fun when I was doing this one, because if there's any place that there's going to be some sort of wild upset team, it's going to be in this year's NFC. Because it's going to be...
But of all the teams, you have the New York Football Giants being that team.
Correct. I have seen this happen
they must
before.
Rise once a generation to clown the rest of the NFC.
I have seen this happen before. Twice. This is something, and this is the kind of year the Giants would do it. And that's the thing. They've got the tools to do it. They've got, so long as they can keep the energy around the team that solid, they could do this. They could do this. And this is nothing against the 49ers at all. I think that it really comes down to a couple of plays. It's not going to be a blowout by any means. There's going to be a surprise. There's going to be a surprise. I think the Giants have the capability of doing it. I hate that it has to be at the 49ers' expense, but it's a championship game, damn it. And I have no reason to believe that Kyle Shanahan can win in the big time. I don't have any reason to believe that, because it hasn't happened yet. And it makes me think that it lends itself to a situation like this. But they're not going to get trounced either. I mean, this is still a very well-built 49ers team. But the Giants have that weird, fuck your built team magic. But not enough to beat the Chiefs. I hear your pain, Sky. But at least your team has a chance.
Yeah, but you got the ring.
Well, that's true. That's true. We did. But you also have a lot of rings, just not in your lifetime. But
I was born in 1994, and that's the last time they won a Super Bowl. Maybe I'm the curse.
Well, and maybe, just maybe, they're going to defy all of our expectations, yours included, and win the Super Bowl this year. It could happen. It totally could.
Yeah, until Kansas City loses, they are going to lose.
So in your Chiefs-Eagles, is that who you're picking to win? The Chiefs win a second time?
Yeah, the Chiefs win a second time.
And it becomes the Cowboys and Bills of our generation?
No, the New England Patriots of our generation.
Well, no, but I mean, like, when the Cowboys were on their run and they beat the Bills in the Super Bowl like 3 times in a row. It's, but...
We'll see.
We'll see.
All I know is that until Patrick Mahomes loses, he's not going to lose.
That's right. Well, as a wise man once said, you don't score until you score. And with that wonderful piece of Americana under our belts and lawsuits coming, Skyler, we've gone through the NFL. We'll see you on the other side. We'll see how we did.
All right. Thank you. And if you use my predictions and make money, make sure to send us a tip.
That's right. Send us a tip. No, send us all of it, because we did it. Editor, threaten him. All right, see ya.